The alarms should not have been silent. That was the first thing I noticed when my shuttle docked 3 days early, and it was the thing that made my heart freeze before I even stepped through the airlock. My name is Vos Kaltiris, and I own more starships than most governments in this sector. My estate, the Aurelia Spire, floats above a gas giant on the edge of Kalthir space, and it runs on a reactor core so advanced that only 12 engineers in the galaxy are certified to touch it. That core had failed 4 days ago. My chief engineer sent me a message soaked in panic, telling me the repair parts would not arrive for another 2 weeks, and that the backup systems were failing one by one. I left my trade negotiations unfinished and flew home, expecting to find my staff in chaos, my lights flickering, my people afraid. Instead, I found silence. Not the silence of disaster, the silence of a machine running exactly as it should. I walked through the main corridor, and every panel glowed a steady blue. The air recyclers hummed low and even. Nothing about this made sense, because 2 days ago my engineer had told me the recyclers were the first system expected to die. I did not go to the command deck. Instinct pulled me toward the service corridor instead, the narrow one built for maintenance staff, the one I had walked through maybe twice in the 6 years I had owned this place. I told myself I wanted to check the reactor access point with my own eyes. The truth is, I wanted to know what was keeping my home alive when every expert I employed had already given up. That is where I found him. A human, kneeling in front of an open conduit panel, sleeves rolled up, forearms streaked with coolant and grease. Wires were pulled out around him like the roots of some strange metal tree, and he was weaving 3 of them together with his bare hands, humming a tune I did not recognize, as if he were fixing a kitchen appliance, instead of the reactor core that kept 11,000 people alive on this station. I knew his face, barely. Sam Whitfield, my janitor. I had signed his contract 2 years ago without reading past his name and his species classification, because on Kalthir ships, humans cleaned floors. That was the entire scope of what I expected from them. I stood there for almost a full minute before I spoke, because some part of me refused to believe what my eyes were showing me. "What are you doing?" I said, and my voice came out sharper than I intended. He did not jump. He did not drop the wires or scramble to his feet the way most of my staff did when I appeared unannounced. He simply glanced up, gave me a short nod, and went back to what he was doing. "Rerouting the secondary coolant line through the auxiliary loop," he said. "Your primary line cracked near the base. Whoever built this thing used a metal alloy that gets brittle under sustained heat. I found a workaround using the spare piping from the old irrigation system in the greenhouse deck." I stared at him. I did not understand half of what he said, and I own this ship. "That reactor requires certified engineering clearance," I said. 12 individuals in this galaxy hold that certification. You clean floors." He shrugged, and the casualness of it struck me harder than any insult could have. "Your 12 certified engineers all said it couldn't be fixed without new parts. I figured someone should try anyway before 11,000 people ran out of air." I want to be honest about what happened inside me in that moment, because I have replayed it many times since. It was not gratitude. Not yet. It was something closer to disorientation. The same feeling you get when the floor tilts slightly under your feet, and your whole body has to recalculate what is level and what is not. I asked him how long he had been working on it. "Since it failed," he said. 4 days. "I sleep in shifts near the access hatch so I can watch the temperature gauges." 4 days. My chief engineer, a Kalthir with 3 advanced degrees and a spotless service record, had spent those same 4 days drafting emergency evacuation plans instead of standing where this human now knelt. I asked him where he learned to do this. He told me, without any pride in his voice, that he grew up in a farming town where the machines broke constantly, and nobody could afford to fly in a specialist. If something stopped working, you fixed it yourself, with whatever was on hand, or you lost the harvest. He said it the way someone describes brushing their teeth. Ordinary, necessary, nothing to boast about. I left him there and walked the rest of the station with new eyes, and what I found unsettled me more than the reactor ever could. The water filtration system on Deck 6, which had been reported as failing months ago, was running at full efficiency. I checked the maintenance logs. Sam's name was on the repair entry, filed quietly. No request for recognition, no invoice for extra hours. The gravity stabilizers on the lower ring, which my engineers had told me needed a full replacement, costing more credits than most star systems generate in a year, were humming along perfectly. Another quiet entry. Another fix nobody had asked me to approve, because approving it would have meant admitting a janitor solved what my top engineers could not. I found 22 more entries like that over the past 8 months. 22 problems my staff had labeled unsolvable, all resolved by a man whose official job title was cleaning technician, 3rd class. I called him to my office that evening. He arrived in his work clothes, still faintly smelling of coolant, and stood there without the nervous energy I expected from someone summoned by their employer. I asked him directly why he never told anyone what he was doing. "I did tell people," he said. "I filed every report through the proper channels. Nobody read them. Nobody expected a janitor's maintenance log to matter, so nobody checked." That stung, because he was right, and because the fault was mine as much as anyone's. I had built an entire hierarchy of value around species and title, and I had never once considered that the value might be sitting in a maintenance closet the whole time. I asked him what he wanted. Most beings, when offered anything from a person of my wealth, ask for money, or property, or influence. He thought about it for a moment and said he wanted better tools, not for himself, for the job. He said fixing things with scavenged parts worked, but it was slower than it needed to be, and slower meant more risk for the people depending on those systems. I offered him a full engineering position, backdated pay for every unclaimed repair, and a title that would put him above every certified specialist on this station. He said the title did not matter to him. He said he would take the tools, and he would take the chance to train others, because he had noticed several other human staff members on my ship who had similar backgrounds, similar instincts, and no outlet for them. That last part changed something in me permanently. I had spent decades believing my species held a natural monopoly on competence, that intelligence and value could be measured in certifications and degrees and inherited technology. I had looked at an entire species and decided their only use was mopping my floors, because I never once imagined that a being raised without advanced tools might develop something my engineers had lost along the way: necessity, improvisation, the stubborn refusal to accept that a problem has no solution just because the manual says so. Over the following months, I did something my board of directors called reckless. I opened a full engineering division staffed primarily by humans, trained under Sam's guidance, given real tools, real authority, and real credit for their work. My original engineers resisted at first, insisted their degrees meant more than experience earned in dirt roads and broken tractors. Then a fuel line ruptured on Deck 3 during a routine test, the kind of failure that should have taken hours to diagnose. One of Sam's new trainees, a young woman named Ellie Marsh who had been sorting cargo crates 6 months earlier, found the fault in 11 minutes and rerouted the entire system without shutting down station power. After that, the resistance stopped being loud. It just stopped. I think about that day in the service corridor often, the silence that should have meant disaster, but instead meant a man was quietly holding my entire home together with wire and stubbornness and 4 sleepless nights, expecting nothing in return. I used to believe that greatness announced itself, that the beings who mattered most would always be found in the boardrooms, the command decks, the places built for people like me. I know now that greatness is just as often found kneeling in a maintenance corridor at 3 in the morning, hands covered in grease, humming a tune nobody else recognizes, quietly refusing to let the people above them fail. Sam still works on my station. He has an office now, and a proper title, though I notice he still keeps a set of worn tools in a bag by his desk, the same ones he used that first night. I asked him once why he kept them, when he could have anything now. He said good tools do not stop working just because you get a promotion. I have not forgotten that. I do not think I ever will. Because somewhere in that answer was the entire truth about humans that my species spent centuries failing to notice. They do not wait for permission to matter, they just get to work, and they keep working, long after everyone else has decided the problem cannot be solved. I came home early that day, expecting to find my empire in ruins. Instead, I found the reason it was still standing.